So this Jakarta Compass, they reported that Elon Musk may be pulling out of Indonesia. So let's talk about Elon Musk's involvement in Indonesia. So now it includes exploring the potential for developing a spaceport in Indonesia, and that is for future SpaceX mission. Then in addition to that, we have Tesla, which is another company that's led by Musk, and he has shown interest in expanding its presence in Indonesia by establishing a production facility for these electric vehicles. And this initiative, it indicates his interest in contributing to Indonesia's aerospace and automotive sector. But let's talk about, let's say, if he is really considering the possibility of pulling out of Indonesia, canceling his investment in Indonesia. So what exactly does that mean for Indonesia? Let's talk more in detail about this. So we know that the Indonesia's automotive market is one of the largest in Southeast Asia, and it has already experienced significant growth in recent years. And this country, Indonesia, is home to several major automotive makers and has a well-established domestic market for both passenger and commercial vehicles. Then, in terms of exports, Indonesia exports its vehicle to neighboring countries in Southeast Asia, such as Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia. Then besides all these countries, the Indonesian automakers, they also export vehicles to other regions, such as Middle East, Africa, and Latin America. So the country's automotive industry, it plays a very significant role in its economy, and it continues to expand its presence in the global market. So as we talk about all this, right, we need to understand who are the other main automotive players in the Indonesia market, who are the other main foreign investors in the Indonesia market. First, we have Hyundai. Hyundai comes top to the mind because Hyundai's investment history in Indonesia dates back to the 1970s when it first started to export vehicles to Indonesia. Then in 2019, Hyundai announced plan to invest around 800 million in Indonesia to build a car manufacturing plant in Western Java. And this investment aimed to capitalize on the growing demand for vehicles in the Indonesia market and to establish a production base in Southeast Asia. And this plant was expected to have an annual production capacity of around more than 200,000 units. And this reflects Hyundai's commitment to expanding its presence in the Indonesia automotive industry. Then next in line, we discuss about Wuling. Wuling Motors, it is a Chinese automaker, and it made its first investment in Indonesia in 2015, when it announced plans to build a manufacturing plant in the country. So this company invested around 700 million in the construction of this plant, which is also located in this Western Java. And this plant was officially started and did its production in 2017, and it currently has the capacity to produce up to 120,000 vehicles annually. And this investment marked Wuling's entry into the Indonesian market, and the company has since been expanding its presence in this country. Then in addition to its manufacturing plant, Wuling has also been investing in research and development activities in Indonesia. And what it wants is it wants to develop products that are tailored to the local market. And this company has been actively introducing new models and expanding its dealership network across the country. Then next in line, we talk about VinFast. VinFast is a Vietnamese automotive maker that has been expanding its presence also in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. Then it was reported in 2019, VinFast announced its plan to invest in building a 1 billion automotive and electric vehicle manufacturing complex in Indonesia. And this investment was part of VinFast's strategy to establish itself as a key player in the regional Southeast Asia automotive market. So this investment in Indonesia was originally aimed at producing both conventional vehicles and electric vehicles, with the goal of tapping into the growing demand for EVs in the Southeast Asian market. And this VinFast investment in Indonesia was then seen as a very significant move to strengthen its position in the region and to compete with other established automotive manufacturers. Then the next one that I want to talk about that is always not very often talked about is Chery. Chery is a Chinese automaker, and its investment history in Indonesia dates back to 2015, when the company announced its plan to invest in a manufacturing plant in Indonesia. Then it was reported in 2017, Chery signed a joint venture agreement with an Indonesian company, PT Astra International, to establish a production base for Chery vehicles in Indonesia. And this joint venture was aimed to produce and sell Chery's vehicle in the Indonesian market. And this demonstrates the company's commitment to investing in the country's automotive industry. So, as we slowly expand on this list, we understand that there is a lot of investors, there is a lot of automotive players in the Indonesian market. And I predict that it's high likelihood that Indonesia may continue to try to attract even more automotive makers to Indonesia to stimulate even more economic growth and to create even more jobs for the Indonesian. And this would align with the country's effort to boost its automotive industry and to strengthen its position in the international market. However, of course, I need to say that specific government policies and strategies are always subject to changes based on various factors. And this we cannot really tell now. But what can Indonesia explore? What other policies can Indonesia explore? What other strategies can they do to attract even more investment, to attract even more automotive makers? The Indonesian government, they can still implement several policies to attract even more automotive makers, such as ramping up their investment incentive by providing tax breaks, subsidies, or maybe other financial incentives to all these automakers, and this to encourage them to set up even more production facilities in the country. Then the next one we can do is infrastructure development. By investing in this infrastructure development for items such as roads, ports, utilities, and all these can support the automakers' operation and facilitate the transportation of these cars. Then you need to talk about streamlining regulations. They need to simplify their regulation. They need to streamline their regulation to make it more streamlined, make the process easier for all these automakers to obtain permits, to obtain license, and other types of approval for all their operations. Then in addition to that, which is very important, they need to develop skilled labor for this market. Therefore, they need to invest in education. They need to come up with training programs, and this to develop a skilled workforce that is tailored to the needs of the automotive industry. The next they may try to do is they may ramp up their research and development support. And by providing support for R&D activities in the automotive sector, they are encouraging innovation and technological advancement so that these automotive makers, they can make use of it to grow even further. Then the last on the line that they can consider, but there are many more too as well, they can also consider trade agreements. So they can negotiate all this trade agreement with other countries in order to facilitate the export and import of automotive products, as well as to provide market access to the Indonesian automotive manufacturers.